Hello and welcome to Backstage at the Dounda Fine Arts Center. I'm Dwight Vaught, your host. Through this series, we're pleased to introduce you to several of the unique artists from around the globe. All of the performers in this series were just a small part of the 2011-2012 season at the Dounda Fine Arts Center at Eastern Illinois University. From a fusion of classical, rock, and jazz with Montana Skies, to traditional Uyghur song and dance of Tarim from the People's Republic of China, in The Rivalry, the 1858 Lincoln-Douglas debates are brought to life on our stage by LA Theater Works.
Fellow citizens, I wish to make a distinction between the existing institution of slavery and the extension of it, so broad and so clear that no honest man can misunderstand me, no dishonest one misrepresent me.
Combining live performance with video and the internet, Punk Yankees from Lucky Plush Productions is a provocative and entertaining dance theater work that explores the questions of authenticity and ownership of dance in the digital age. In this episode, we feature Pendulum Aerial Arts from Portland, Oregon. They came to perform here at the Dounda in August of 2011, our opening show for that season. Now, this was one of the most technical shows for our staff, as it was the first time we'd ever featured aerial dancers in our theater space. This was also the first time Pendulum had taken their show on the road to a theatrical venue like the Dounda. I had the chance to sit down with Pendulum's founder and creative director, Suzanne Kenny, to learn more about how art, dance, and athleticism come together in a show called High Art. We've got a lot to talk about because this is a big show. I mean, lots of pieces, but let's start back maybe with a little bit of your own history as to how you got involved in dance and aerial arts, and then how you came to form your own company, Pendulum Aerial Arts.
Okay, well, I moved from Los Angeles to Portland, Oregon in 1996. And very soon after that, I went to an audition, and I had been acting in Los Angeles for a number of years. And I auditioned for a Shakespeare play called Midsummer Night's Dream, which everyone knows. And I was cast as Peas Blossom, and they cast all of the fairies in the air. And I had never done anything. And I remember the audition where I had to figure out how to get up onto a trapeze bar and this and that. And anyway, I think I actually got the part because I could actually talk. And most of the other people there were just strictly dancers. So from there, I absolutely fell in love with it. We did just some small, very simple phrases on the trapeze, and I worked on an apparatus called a sling. And after we did that show, another person who had been in the show, someone named Mike Barber, we bought the equipment and we started our own company. And it was the first aerial, we called it aerial dance at that time, the first aerial dance company in Portland, Oregon.
And when was that roughly?
1996, 16 years ago. So from there, I was co-directed that company for 4 years. And then in 2000, I founded Pendulum, and Mike and I went our separate ways. And I've had Pendulum for the last almost 12 years now. There's
so much there. So you were an actor?
I was an actor and a dancer.
And a dancer.
I started out my career as a ballet dancer. And then I just really sort of took class, but that wasn't my main focus. My main focus was acting. So I come from a very strong theater background, and hence all of my work is very story-driven. And I'm not about so-called, as we say, the tricks. I'm really about that no matter how technical the things are that we were doing, that we are still a character and that we're really telling a story and making a very strong connection with the audience. That's of the utmost importance to me artistically.
So as an actor, when they said they were going to fly the fairies, all of a sudden, how do you think, I'm an actor, I don't go in the air, I don't do these kinds of things. So how does the acting skill translate to, or is it a completely different realm? Once you get in the air, you're thinking so much about where your body is and what's keeping you in the air. How do you act when you do that?
Well, the interesting thing for me was as soon as we had somebody actually following the making of that story also, because it was a very unique idea, especially that many years ago. It was when I first got on the trapeze bar, it was like I was meant to do it. it was like a light went on, and it was actually quite easy for me. I mean, I wasn't strong by any stretch of the imagination. I remember in the beginning of the show, I wasn't able to get above onto the trapeze bar. Everything I did was below it. And then about 4 weeks into the run, I was able to get up on the trapeze bar. It was amazing. But
it's just like acting. You develop a skill.
You develop a skill. And boy, it was ignorance is bliss, because when I really, through my training over the, the next like 15 years, when I learned how little I did know, and I did approach everything as a dancer, which is not the proper preparation to do aerial work. And hence we all had a lot of injuries, shoulder injuries and back injuries, and because it is a very different warm-up that's necessary, a different set of skills, strength, and proper training to be able
Although
to
most of us would think that a dancer would enhance being an aerialist, but you're saying it's very different. So explain a little bit of some of the differences.
Right. You'll see I have one of my dancers, Shell, who is a ballet dancer. She's a perfect example, and she's been only with the company for 10 months, and she's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful feet, and her technique is flawless, but you have to gain the strength. It doesn't matter if you are a dancer. It's a totally different set of muscles and strength training that you need to do to be able to accomplish it and make it look effortless, which is what we do. When people see our shows, they go, oh, I could do that. That looks, and it's very humbling when you come in to even see what it feels like to support your own body weight underneath a trapeze bar and just hold yourself. That's how my first audition was. The choreographer said, hold the trapeze bar and bend your knees and hold yourself up off the ground. And I'm gonna count how long you can do that. And I was able to do it for 45 seconds. And that was longer than anyone else in the audition. But that is nothing, so it is, and also I would say aerial work, and it's like dancing. You don't go on point your first month. It's a process, you have years of training to be able to get to that point. And I say that it takes 3 years. From the time someone begins till they're really amazing and flawless, and it's very organic for them to move in the air and also be able to do a character.
So Pendulum comes along.
Yes.
You've not only got your own company, you've got to find your aerialists.
Right.
You've got to develop, as you say, your thematic continuity, the stories, the shows of what you're going to do.
Right.
How do you, as a director, find all of this and put it together for any particular show?
Well, because really I was starting with ignorance is bliss. I mean, in the beginning of my work, we were all dancers, and we had nobody training us from like a contemporary circus approach. So when I started Pendulum, I knew that I wanted to bring in experts to really teach me, because I'm a perfectionist, the foundation skills that were necessary to do this type of work. So the first guest artist, I'm also artist in residence at a school in Portland, and I've been there since 1999. And that has enabled me to, bring artists from around the world and sort of do an exchange with my company and have them then teach the students at the school. So in 2001, I brought 2 twins that were in Cirque du Soleil's Salt and Banco. And they did our first sort of, guest artist residency. And that's sort of where we laid the foundation for a program that I've had for the last 12 years, where I bring artists from around the globe to teach. And they teach my students in my school, they teach the company, and then a lot of times they will do choreography. So that really, it's been a process for me to learn even how to teach students, and knowing that I wanted to do it the proper way so that people didn't have injuries, because it's also dangerous what we do. So I wanted to make sure, especially if I have a school, that everybody is safe. I've had the opportunity to work with graduates from the Montreal Circus School, which is there's probably only 3 amazing circus schools in the whole world, and the Montreal Circus School is one of them. And so I brought, for 5 years, I've had teachers that come as coaches for like a 2-year contract, and they stay and they teach my students, they teach my company, and they choreograph. So through that, I've sort of developed a way that, at least my training is set apart from the rest of the aerial companies in America, really, because I work with international artists. And I always want to tell a story. That's the thing that interests me the most as a person and as an artist is human relationships. I find they're difficult and yet interesting and multi-layered. And so a lot of my work is sort of semi-autobiographical. Obviously, that's just sort of how it works when you're an artist. It's kind of cathartic and you want to get, things out, stories out. And I would say that for high art, it really is a culmination of, 15 years of work. And really having because most of the people in my company have come through my school, and they're at such a high level technically, that we were able to do a show of this caliber.
Called high art.
Okay.
When we use the phrase high art, oftentimes in our circles we think of something that is work of the old masters, somewhat exclusive, having a bit of background knowledge and expertise, a bit highbrow, if you will. Right. And you've kind of taken some elements of that in that this show, High Art, is based on masterpieces of visual art.
Yes.
So talk about the process that you have 8 pieces of visual art, how you selected those, and then how you bring it from here's a painting or here's a piece of visual art to now here is a visual representation on stage, our interpretation of what it might be. That's an amazing concept to me.
Yeah, it is. I really pride myself on it. I think it is, well, I absolutely love art, and I've always considered, I'm amazed at the human body and what it can do. And to me, it's like, I'm the artist, I'm the creator, and then all of my dancers are the art, and they fill in the canvas for me, because it makes me very emotional to talk about. They're also, you know, they contribute so much artistically. Like, I will give a concept and I let them go with it. And in my company there is, you know, I am the concept person, but everybody gets to be creative, which is, I think, very unique for most companies, because it's usually one person at the helm doing all the choreography, and it gets kind of narrow. So I feel like what's really rich about this show is the artistic contribution that each of the artists has made. And so I knew the story that I wanted to tell. It's basically the story of someone's life. They're born, then they come in and they see all of the things, like the Garden of Earthly Delights by Bosch, shows like the good and the bad. And what we did, because it's a tableau of 3 canvases, we chose to show the nice part of it, because it can be kind of, you know, it's very dark. You know, and then from there it kind of skips to a mother and a daughter, and, you know, the child wanting to grow up and separate. So we have the mother-daughter scene. And that was just, I found it's a tapestry, actually. That's the only one that isn't a master's. But it was called Stress, and it was a series of tapestries, and it really fit the part of the story that, you know, it would tell about, you know, the mother and the daughter.
So did you have pieces of artwork in mind, or did you have the concept first and say, I wanted to find pieces of art?
I had the story I wanted to tell first. And I worked with another girl who worked in my company who was an art major. And so, you know, we collaborated together. Like, I had the story in my head, and then she would go, oh, well, what about that painting, or what about that? And I told her the artists that I love Picasso and I love Dali, you know, and so we chose the art. And I also wanted it to be accessible to people and not have them be necessarily obscure, you know, artists, because we do have an educational component and I feel like it is a very good tool to, you know, it's very interesting to find a piece of art and then act it out through, you know, through the body and through a story. And then the contortion act is, it's one girl. It's called A Girl Before the Mirror, and it's one girl and the 3 parts of her personality. You have the dark side of your personality, you have the young, innocent part of your personality, and then you have the mother part, the part that's trying to, you know, nurture you. That is one of my most favorite acts in the show. It's very dramatic. And the thing that is incredible is what they're doing physically, but that it's so powerful, the characters that come through, and you can distinctly tell who is the different part of the person's personality. I think it's stunning, really. Luis and I, my dance partner, have worked together. We first started working together 10 years ago. Gustav Klimt is one of my favorite painters. Always has been. And we actually have been doing this act longer than High Art. But when we were going to do the show, I said, oh my God, I could have actually done a whole show with just Klimt. But our act, it is kissing. I mean, when you see it, that's what it's romantic. It's a love story of 2 people So that's sort of been the signature, component of the show. And then also there was the music component too, because I've worked with a lovely singer I've told you about, Sasha Lazard, and we've collaborated for the last 8 years or 9 years now. And so they created music that also enhanced and told the story.
That's another piece that I find fascinating, because you've not only got the story for high art, then you've got the visual art pieces, you've got the aerialists that you have to work with in the choreography, and then you've got this other layer, which is music. And again, it's like everything else. If you don't find the right musicians and the right style of music, it all really has to fit together.
Yes. Oh, the music is everything. For me, I mean, the music, well, it enriches everything. And the thing that's amazing is that through my work with Sasha, I did a very big show in 2003 called On the Fly, and I was playing around with music and I didn't like any of it, and I saw a little clip in a magazine I called W. It's a fashion magazine, and they'd done a short review about a woman named Sasha Lazard that's taking the world by storm with her debut CD called Myth of Red. And at that point I was very into red, like red silks and what red means. And
I can't imagine why you're affectionate about
red. Right, exactly, and I have red hair. So anyway, so I went and I bought her CD, and I had no idea who she was or what her music was about, and I played it, and I'd already done the choreography for this show. It told the story. It was phenomenal.
Amazing.
There was 11 cuts on the CD. I used 9 of them. I wrote to her, and I said, I'm so-and-so, and I have this aerial company, and I want permission to use your music. And she just said, oh my God, I've always seen my work in that, in that format. We met, we gelled, and we've been working together ever since.
Amazing.
So when I was doing this show, that is definitely who I wanted to go to help collaborate and create a lot of the music that you'll hear in the show.
So the show itself, roughly from beginning to the end, it sounds like there were several pieces that just came together on this show. But if you're going to do a show, is it 2 years in the process by the time you, from concept to take the stage?
Dwight, it really is. Again, Sasha, actually, I'd come from a trip at her house. I saw a picture, and I got the idea. And she inspired me, and then we worked on high art for well over a year before we premiered it last August. And now, because we had live music and we had a lot of other components, and we did it in our hometown, and we didn't have to think about, well, will that apparatus move, or will this or that? We've spent the last 6 months knowing that we were coming here, making it so we could tour the show, and making our props so they could move, and also creating the show without the live musicians. That was
right.
That was very.
When you're going on the road, you've got the musicians to deal with, you've got the aerialists to deal with, you've got the new space. When you premiered the show, it was at the Portland Museum of Art.
Right, and we were not in a proscenium stage. We were in.
So you can think of a big, expansive art museum, where they probably put steel beams and trusses up for you to be able to.
Exactly.
So now you're taking it on the road, and you have to think a little differently, because you're going into spaces that
we don't know.
You don't see.
Right.
And you have to be able to adapt.
Right. And the very first thing is that in the museum, we had a main stage, which the musicians were on. And then we created a 24-foot long catwalk to a stage. We were like in 3/4 round. So it was not a proscenium. So we had to redesign all the lighting. We had to, re-choreograph a number of acts. So it was very different, and figure out where we were going to put Libby. And also because we've had another year, we've changed. The story's just gotten richer. And people have developed their characters, and they're that much better technically in another year.
And before coming to Eastern Illinois University, you really hadn't taken the show on the
Never.
road.
This is our first stop.
Okay.
This is our first stop. We travel all over the United States and the world doing corporate events, but this is the first time we've brought high art on the road.
So this is a learning experience for you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, just, to the fact of, okay, is everything going to fit in the cargo van? Or do
there
we
are those practical realities.
Yeah, there's so many things involved in touring that people don't really think about. But we did so much. Your crew was fantastic, and I have an amazing stage manager. And when we arrived today, the spikes were down on the stage. I mean, we were ready to load in, not figure out, okay, this is where this goes and this is where that goes. We were ready to get up and go up in the air and get on the grid and have them start working. So.
But then you do have to get in the air. You have to hang the span sets. You have to make sure that all the height, distance,
Yes.
depth, all of that is there. What kinds of things do you adjust to in a new space? Because when you can practice in a space, for example, like the Portland Art Museum, where it might have premiered, you don't have much practice time here. And I can imagine it's like dancers, where you always have to sort of find your mark. You have to find your niche or your feel. You know, does this feel right?
So we've been working with your stage taped out on our floor down to where your speakers are going to be since June. So we really know pretty much what we're coming into. You know, like we had a little glitch today as far as like for the silks, we needed to be a certain height, and so they had to, you know, move up the lights for us a little bit. But so far it's gone very well, and we are really familiar with what our spacing was going to be. So that's you have to have that. We couldn't really be cold coming into a space and not, which happens when we go to do corporate events, and it's scary, actually. Sure. You know, they want us to do something and we're going to hit the wall, and, you know, things haven't been taken into consideration, so. So
when we do the show here, we will have a mini gallery of those art pieces that people can begin their inspiration in the concourse as they come into the show. So they come into the show, they might think circus, because that may be one of their only experiences with aerial arts. They'll see something that's very different. What do you hope they'll learn, or what do you hope that they'll take away from your show?
Well, definitely the emotional connection. I want people to, I know that they are moved. People are always, they're very, like I remember last year when we did the mother-daughter, I had a lot of friends whose kids were going off to college, and they would see me in the lobby afterwards and they go, oh, that piece, I was crying. And you know, so I want the story to come through. The thing about my shows is they're visually stunning. The music is phenomenal. The costuming is also a work of art, which, you know, it just enhances the show even more. And we really are telling a story, and I do feel like it does come through in the presentation by the artists.
In your mind, in your soul.
And also it opens the eyes to people that normally don't like going to, say, a dance performance, or, I mean, we are compared to Cirque du Soleil a lot, and we only wish we had the money. But I was
and the notoriety.
And the notoriety. Sure. But I was very inspired by Cirque's early works, you know, when they were very simple and they were Renaissance performers, and not so much about, you know, it's in your face, it's in your face. And they've lost a lot of that beauty to me. I mean, they have the most money and they can hire whoever they want, but it's become very commercial. So I hope that, you know, people can, we get a lot of comments, it's like Cirque du Soleil, but it's much more intimate. My company is about the high art of circus. I mean, it isn't, there's a lot of people doing, you know, circus per se, but I'm very much about, you know, the beauty of it, the higher art of it, and not being sort of people that go to Burning Man. I mean, there is that component, if you know what Burning Man is. Yes. That's not, I mean, my company is not tattooed. I mean, no offense, but it's just, we're a very different, I think a very different aesthetic. And we take pride in that, and we also take pride in the fact that we put a lot of effort into what we do, and we don't just, you know, kind of wing it and put it out there. There is 2 years of preparation to do a show.
So final question. You're involved in this high art, you're so deeply involved in it now, but like most true artists, you're already thinking about something beyond. Yes, you know,
yes.
What's coming up next for Pendulum Aerial Arts?
Well, I mean, we're going to be going through a transition. My company's been, a lot of us have been together for years and years. Literally, I've been with Josie's been with me for 9 years. I have a large group. They're graduating. I have 3 students that have been with me as recreational students through my apprentice program, now coming into the company. They're all graduating from high school, and Sarah's graduating from college. So there's going to be a transition just through the artists that are leaving. So that's why it's going to open up high art to be bringing in, you know, professionals that I'm going to be reworking the show again.
you're really kind of living your own show, the process, the transitions of life. You're
That's
going
right.
through them as a company.
Exactly.
Just like you hope the audience will.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, we really are. And the whole story of high art is that, you know, it's like from Adam and Eve through the Garden of Earthly Delights, all through life, you have your ups and downs, but in the end you can stay together. So that's the hope, and that you ascend to a higher place. So it has a nice happy ending, which in life, things are kind of rough out there. So I really like being able to give people that also, that they can go out of the theater and be like, wow, I just saw something really beautiful, and forget about what's going on in the world.